My name's Leah Lord. I'm a mega church cult survivor. I spent 18 years in a mega church cult, and now I come online and I expose them. I also facilitate sessions where I help survivors deprogram and deconstruct their minds, including myself. So let's get into it. I've just been seeing so many videos circulating online about these street preachers, and you know, it's just unbelievable what I'm seeing. You know, it's giving more street theatre than street preaching, and there's a lot of different dynamics at play here. So I always like to look into the psychology and the neuroscience. This is part 2. If you weren't on the live prior, then it's on my YouTube account, Leah Lauder 777. And basically I was just speaking about, I'm so tired, I hope I can do this. I was just speaking about them going out and doing this style of aggressive preaching, which is ABUSE, is rage bait for the algorithm, is street theatre, not ministry. They stage confrontations in sensitive locations, e.g. LGBTQ plus spaces. Can I ask that if you're on here, you like the live? It's so important because I won't be able to stay on here, guys, with that many likes, because we have to protect the space. So if you are on here and this is resonating, please help us to protect the space. Thank you. Okay, why it turns chaotic, guys. 1 second, I need to okay, all right. So now what I'm going to be discussing today is what narcissistic reactive abuse is, because I think it's really important to understand what this looks like. I also want to break down how it's done in street preaching as well, because it's it's street theatre. And what you'll notice is there'll be these guys filming and doing different things. It's like a production. So what we rarely see is the whole footage. What happens in the lead up is edited, and then we just see them editing the parts that they want to show the public, and then we just see this really like heightened state of aggression and conflict. And you know, when we bring in the other ideologies that they have, like the us versus them mindset, very black and white dogmatic thinking, it's not, the ideologies that they have, they don't fit into society, into 2025 that we have today. And there's all different types of indoctrination as to why they justify this. But I'm just going to get into what narcissistic reactive abuse looks like, okay? So the definition, we're going to look at the definition firstly. So in abusive dynamics, reactive ABUSE happens when guys, I can't even say the word, is when, okay, all right. So in abusive dynamics, reactive ABUSE happens when the perpetrator provokes, harasses, or humiliates someone until that person reacts, yelling, defending themselves, or even lashing out. Okay, so again, we can see all of this because he's going to LGBTQ plus spaces where he knows he's going to get the rage bait. If he goes there hurling ABUSE, saying they're all going to HELL, talking about their sins, DEVIL, with a microphone and a speaker, they're going to get them into that heightened state. And that's what they want to do, because it's also an adrenaline rush for them as well, because they're addicted to the conflict. They're thrill seekers. So a lot of these guys come from quite, I'm going to say they come from core morbid traumatic backgrounds. All right. So that's just a plethora of different issues. They could have been in and out of, you know, they could have been incarcerated their whole life, in and out. They could have been on the roads. But these are the kind of guys that do it because they've been in and out of those spaces. They've had things on them. They've been about that life. So they're used to being on the streets. So it's not, you know, it's not a sacrifice. They're not really fearless and so brave because they're going out and they're, you know, preaching the gospel fearlessly. They're going out and aggravating people, jail. We have a word, it's called narcissistic reactive ABUSE, baby. That's all they're doing up. But what happens is, within this whole thing, yeah, all of them, what it is, is that a lot of them are not really from a certain type of life. So they will commend this, like, oh, they're so brave. But people who have come from a certain life, we can just see that this is just barbaric. Do you understand? So that same thrill that they got out of shotting or being on the roads or whatever, it's the same thrill they get out of doing this up on the street, but it's covered and cloaked and masked in hyper religiosity. All right. Hey, Queen Lucia. I also see a lot of hyper masculine traits in these guys, and I think I will be breaking that down tomorrow as well. Okay. So the perpetrator then flips the script after the harassment, the humiliation, the provocation, and then they start to play the victim card. Oh, I'm getting persecuted for being so brave and going out and preaching gospel. I'm a victim, yeah? So then what they do is they flip the script, pointing at the victim's reaction as proof that they are unstable. What Ollie did the other day, if you see at the top here, an elderly woman was so provoked that she put hands on him, yeah? And then he goes, oh, come and talk to me. He's like, why did you do that? Why'd you do that? I could call the popo on you, but I'm not going to do that. So we see like the emotional manipulation. It's very sadistic, very narcissistic. Do you know what I mean? And then it's like this woman doesn't even want the mic in effect. There's a lot of that goes on as well. A lot of manipulation, because it's like, you know, a lot of these people that I see are also vulnerable. They would fall into the vulnerable groups, because under the Equality Act, sweetheart, I can't remember if it's 2015, chair, but under Lucia, what is it, chair? Under the Equality Act, baby, the elderly are a protected characteristic. I know that because I did an AM in social work. Thank you, my lovely. The Equality Act of 2010. The elderly are a protected characteristic. And the one that he had on the floor, this one that he was laying hands on and whatever, she looked very vulnerable. She looked like a vulnerable adult, chair. Oh, thank you, Sophia. I appreciate you, my love. Sophia, do you know why I'm out in these streets doing this, babe? Because I was in a cult for 18 years and now I'm disabled. I'm registered disabled, girl. I've got chronic kidney disease. It's chronic, chair. And then I've got Addison's, baby. Yeah. That's hyperadrenalism. I don't have an adrenal, chair. Because you know the adrenals that produce cortisol, and that's what helps you manage stress and whatever. I was under such a high pressure, high control environment that my adrenal unalived. And it was causing me all types of health issues. It had to get to the point where I literally felt like that was it. And I'm going to share this. I'm going to do an exclusive on a podcast soon. So I'm not going to say too much. But let's just say if I hadn't have gone to the hospital that night, guys, I wouldn't be sitting here speaking to you right now, yeah? And that happens to a lot of people. But they don't connect the dots before they unalive. A lot of people go when they're young in these spaces. Clock it. Clock it, y'all. All right. So the perpetrator then flips the script, pointing at the victim's reaction as proof that they are unstable, aggressive, or in the wrong. It's a manipulation tactic. They hide their ABUSE behind the victim's visible reaction. That's what they do up. And it's important to note, especially if you're dealing with a narcissist, like a spouse, you come out and you know that the husband's a narcissist, especially if you're like, English isn't your first spoken language, or, you know, there's some sort of like power dynamic or something like that. This is why I'm saying that this is part of the deconstruction and deprogramming process, because if there's certain statutory services that have to become involved, then you can explain to them that this is reactive abuse. He was doing A, B, C, D, and E before, and then he started filming me when this happened or whatever, yeah? You need to know your rights. You need to, but part of what I'm going to start doing is more advocacy work, more information, advice and guidance, you know, and all of that. Thank you, Nance. I appreciate you. Can you give what definition? Can you give the deficient? What do you mean, babe? Can you give the, did you mean to say differentiation of the want response to narcissistic behavior? Babe, I don't understand your question. Maybe can you Can you construct that sentence a bit differently for me, please? And then I can try and gauge what you're saying, because I can't gauge what you're saying from that. Yeah. What part was I on? Okay. All right. So now we're going to look at how it shows up with street preachers, because now I've just given you the definition of narcissistic, reactive narcissistic abuse. Commonly, it's known in ABUSE relationships. Now we're going to look at it in context to how it shows up with street preachers in this dynamic. So provocation as content. They deliberately target vulnerable groups, e.g. LGBTQ plus congregations, survivors, with insults dressed as scriptures. You're DEMONS, you're going to hell. This is the trigger. So again, the provocation and the trigger is wrapped and disguised in hyper religiosity. And this is why I didn't even want to say this, but I've already put it out on the thing. But this is why I've coined a new term, hyper religious narcissism. Thank you so much. I'm currently writing a book that will be out in January. And I'm going to be starting an online university on TikTok from January. So guys, what I thought would be quite fun, because cults do a lot of recruitment around September and whatever, it could be really triggering for survivors. So I'm going to start our own university. It's not going to start in Saturday though. It's going to start in it's not going to start in September. It's going to start in January, you know, because we're mature learners. So with mature learners, yeah, it's going to be a January or a February start. So the whole idea is that we enroll in September, and then I start to share the reading list, and then I'll also be giving a few exclusives for my book, new concepts, models and frameworks that I've developed. So, you know, those that are in the university will like get that before, but everyone will be able to access the book though. And I'll still be sharing some of this on the lives, but like the access to the content and also like any questions that you want to ask. And I really do want to do this in a format where we actually are, and it doesn't have to be written. Your thing could be painting, it could be singing, it could be poetry, it could be writing, it could be spoken word, whatever your thing is, expressing yourself through that medium, because not everybody, some people are visual learners. We all have different learning needs. So it's going to be really good, because I can be able to, I think, like have more of a focus and work with survivors on more of a one-to-one with that type of, what's it? I don't want to say sister, but that not process, that type of, I don't know what to say, but you know, structure maybe in place. I think it will be put a little bit more, because there hasn't been any structure, because that's very triggering for me. And to some extent will always be. But as I'm healing, I'm getting to this point now where I do want to see structure. And also I think people have their own ideologies of, you know, what should happen and where this should go and whatever. But I think what this season has been about for me is really going within and saying, well, actually, I'm an informal educator and a social scientist. So I think where I sit within all of this is really getting the awareness out there, the informal education, you know, through my voice, and amplifying the voice of other survivors to speak their truth as well. So that's where I'm at the moment. All right, guys. So let's get into it, because we've got a lot to get into, Chair. Family, let's super like the live to protect it. Oh, thanks, Queen. You're such a queen. Thanks, babe. And thank you to everybody who's been like, ooh, 6K, Chair. I can see Lucia in there liking it up. Thanks, Dev. Thank you lot, man. Thank you, Unify. Is that Unify? Thanks for liking up the live. Appreciate you lot. All right. So how it shows up with street preachers. So provocation as content. These preachers deliberately target vulnerable groups, e.g. LGBTQ plus, with insults dressed as scripture. Your demons, you're going to HELL, and this is the trigger. This is the trigger button. So that's the ABUSE, and then they react because they're calling them that. That's harassment. That's an insult. That's, you know, we could go on and on and on forever. Yeah. And then they get out the phones and they start recording it. people at heightened states of reactive narcissistic ABUSE. That's essentially what's happening. So it's also the exploitation of people as well. It means to provoke. So it means and I'm so glad that you asked, my love, because this is the stuff that I love. So it's just a posh way to say provoke or wind someone up or PISS someone off, really, Jer. And even I look at chat, because this is all from ChatGPT, and I'm like, oh, Jer, why couldn't you just say, there was one that I was trying to figure out the other day, girl. It was something like some posh word for it was like idiocracy or in it, idiochronatic or something. I was like, why couldn't they just put, you know, why couldn't they just put idiot? Why did they have to do all of that? Because I have to go on Google or check it out. All right. And then after that, we get the expected reaction. They want someone to shout back, cry, argue, or even lash out. Like the elderly woman who put hands on the guy. Yes, idiosyncratic. Yes. Yes, Chair. And that's what I love, because, you know, like survivors, like, who really know their stuff out here follow me, and I'm like, oh, you know, it makes me feel good. Like, like if I've got people who know what they're talking about, Chair, and they're locked in. Why do they use these big words? I'm not really sure, but that's why I always try and break it down, or I say, you know, ask me. That's why I'm here. You get me? And then I can just say it in a way that you'll understand. But I know these words are getting used in my assignments, Share. Yeah! Oh, I love that. And if you need, and Jade, you know what? Yeah, I will share some of the references, because, guys, the reason why I'm going to have to do the university online is because, I mean, with subscribers, is because we do get flooded in with a lot of trolls, and I do want it to be like a serious space, and I want people to like invest in themselves, and I want it to be a really focused group. And I think also I am going to be putting a lot of work into it. I'm going to keep it a buck, you know, you lot know I don't lie, and I have been putting a lot of work into this. So I do want to move forward with something a little bit more like that. So obviously there's no pressure. And if people are not in a financial circumstance to do so, but really have a heart and reach out to me, I will never begrudge anyone of knowledge and information. I would never do that. And I will share that information and knowledge. Do you get what I'm saying? So I don't want people to feel like they're going to lose out if they don't have the P's. Because it's not the mega church. It's not the court. It's not the court. It's just Leah. Okay? Oh, Jay, you're such a king. And this is why I want to do it in this structure, because then I can have a bit more structure, be able to like be doing these one-to-ones with the survivors. And then I can start to document this for the CIC as well, and for funding, because now I have more of a structure of what I want to deliver. And essentially that's what I want to start doing. But I don't want to be talking too much, but I just want to give you guys an idea of it, because it's going to just start happening really fast, and I'm just going to start rolling it out. There's going to be absolutely no pressure. But see, like you, for example, if you're doing a certain course or whatnot, and you want to make certain connections or talk about certain things, you know, that's why I want to have that, so that there can be one-to-ones with, you know, people that are, you know, enrolled in the university. And I think it's good for us. Do you know what I mean? Because we have to unlearn and unpack. And I think having a structure, and with this pilot one, if it works out really well, then I can just make it like this roll. I don't want to say too much, but, you know, tailor make it and do up different things, because people are thieves as well. All right, so let's get into it. Oh, thanks, Mickey, I appreciate you. Thank you. And then it will give me time in those 3 months whilst you guys have the reading list, you're enrolling, and then, you know, the lives will be in preparation to that. And then I'll also have sub only lives for us to just have like reflective spaces to go through. So it's going to be really good. And then I'll have 3 months to shape it. But the whole idea is I don't want to just, you know, dictate and shape something. Part of the lives will be, you know, getting consolidation from you guys. Do you get what I mean? Like, this is what I'm thinking, you know, etc., etc. So I'm really excited about it. Yes, I do. How do I do that? Because I usually just email it to myself. I also have it documented online as well, like now. But Misfit, can you message me? You look like you know what you're talking about, Cher. You look like you know what you're talking about. Okay. So after all of that, we then have the expected reaction. They want someone to shout back, cry, argue, or even lash out, like the elderly woman who put hands on Ollie. That reaction gives them their clip. That reaction gives them their rage bait. That reaction turns into monetary. That action turns into monetization. All right. So it's all there's an element of GROM in as well. Okay. Thank you, Misfit. The role reversal. They then frame themselves as the persecuted, you know what, the persecuted Christians under attack for just preaching the gospel. Your normal human reaction to ABUSE becomes their evidence that the world HATEs the truth. Ooh, that's some powerful stuff, man. Ooh. How are you guys feeling? Yeah, clock it. Oof. That just went like that through my body because it's just, this is so perfectly articulated. I'm going to say it again. The role reversal. This is a huge tactic that they use when they're out doing this. And again, guys, what we can see is the isolation, the us versus them mindset, the dogmatic thinking. So this isn't just the reason why I think God wants me to, God, you know, I was meant to say the reason why. So the reason why I'm highlighting on this is because we've been looking at this from like a perspective of we go to the setting, everything's external, this, but this is an element where they're now going outside into the streets. And we can see that the same tactics, same characteristics are being used. But I think this is a heightened level of exposure to cultic tactics. That's what I think is going on here. Because, you know, it's not a controlled environment. It's just chaotic. It's just wild. I can't believe I see through their BS. Yeah. And there's a lot of mystical manipulation as well. A lot of mystical manipulation, a lot of calculated things that happen behind the scenes. But one thing I will tell you is that God sees, share. Because me, I fear God. Or all right. So they then frame themselves as the persecuted Christians under attack for just preaching the gospel. Your normal human reaction to abuse becomes their evidence that the world hates truth. So do you see the twisting and manipulation of the word? So there's mystical manipulation within that as well through the role reversal. Online amplification. They upload these clips as rage bait, stripping away their provocation and highlighting only the reaction. So do you see that they do all of this? They get them really heightened, they trigger them, they hurl ABUSE at them, they provoke them. Don't put in that bit. And then they highlight only on the reaction. That's the reactive narcissistic abuse. This creates sympathy, outrage, and clicks, feeding both their ego and the algorithm. Yeah. These guys are a piece of work, innit? Because I just want to be able to keep this live. I'm not going to say the next bit. The narcissistic dynamics. Grandiosity. Somebody said God complex earlier. They see themselves as martyrs or prophets, not ordinary people yelling ABUSE. Another thing that you see come into this is it's obviously religious psychosis, because they believe that they're out here as some, you know, called prophet, evangelist, whatever. And then they have these other people around them who follow them around like little fans. So that also feeds into the delusions. Thank you, my love. And the grandiose delusions that they have of self. Lack of empathy. The genuine pain of those they target is irrelevant. It's all fuel for the ministry brand. So again, we can see the narcissism in the lack of empathy for the community. Hey, evening, my love. There's no love like you know what HAT, chair. What do you mean? Girl, don't come on here promoting things, my love, because it's not that type of space. I'll keep it real with you. We're survivors of this. Is serious stuff I'm talking about here. Women are, you know, they're eating from the great bowl and stuff in her chair. Do you know what I mean? We've got 304s out here saying, you know, do you want, yeah. Thanks, my love. Control through chaos. By destabilizing others emotionally, they maintain the upper hand. Adrenaline addiction. Much like narcissistic abusers in relationships, they thrive on chaos and conflict. These men thrive on the high of confrontation and the attention that follows. So those are the narcissistic dynamics at play. Then we're going to go into why is this so dangerous? Firstly, I want to say, because I don't know if it's going to come up here, but what my main issue is with this is that it's giving Christ a bad name. That's the number one on my list. And also the faith. All right. It's not a true representation. Okay. So what it's doing is people are going online and laughing, and you know, it's people are not taking what's going on here seriously, because I still believe in the power of healing and miracles. Do you know what I mean? But when guys like this are going and doing it up, yeah, that's what it is. It's a mockery. Yeah. Because and this is the reason why I don't identify as that. It's because of things like this. Because when you say that, you can't, if you say, yeah, that you're from that particular group, right, that Mickey's saying there, that puts you in the same category as a JW, a Mormon, a 7-day event. Do you know what I mean? It's all under that umbrella. For me, I don't identify as that. And I think it's a very Eurocentric, patriarchal, like colonizer ideology, I'd say, of Christ. So I just, you know, it's not my vibe. Yeah. Babe, I don't even think it's shorts. I think it was a mini skirt chair. Deleted it because it didn't have enough likes, then uploaded it with Jesus quote. Wow. But that's the thing, guys. They know when they call on that name, like anyone that starts talking about that, they're going to have the support. Do you understand what I'm saying? They're going to get all of the likes. And you got to understand with social media, like the things that I'm doing, if it's not for the collective, like liking, pushing, watching the video, because a lot of people watch my videos to the end as well. That's what pushes the algorithm. So when they've got like hundreds of thousands of people doing that and sharing it and all of that, that's what, and they know that. So it's just this, it's just this really toxic cycle, because social media is addictive. And I said to you guys, I had to do a lot of grounding work, because it does get addictive, child. You got to remember like the focus, because you can just become consumed by it. So these guys are not consumed with going to the setting every Sunday and being there with they're consumed with being on the streets and doing this, because this takes a lot of time and energy, child, to be doing up all of that and then editing it. She loves herself too much. Loves her own face. Every post is her playing up to the camera. Well, a lot of the time it's projection. But a lot of, you know, a lot of gal like this, before, this is what they were doing. That's how they get attention. And I'm going to go into this because I've got a whole bit coming. So it's you see them doing the same thing, but covering it in hyper religiosity. That's why I've chosen her as an example, because theirs is aggressive. Hers is flirty fishing. So it's essentially thinging herself. Do you know what I mean? But covering it with hyper religiosity, because she'll do whatever it takes to get what she wants. Yeah. And so again, she's got that same ethos, but covering it with hyper religiosity. And then again, it's addiction to the views and this, that, and the third. Yeah. It's all of that. But we'll see, because as I said, you know, they've only been doing this for 5 minutes. You know, I was in ministry for 18 years, my love. You get me? Rode it out for 18 years. And I've been on here consistently for a hot minute now, chair. I have to call him back, chair. And I've been doing this consistently for a while. So, you know, I'm always going to be here. So I'll be seeing what happens, however long it takes. Okay. Oh my gosh, because I got this phone call, I've lost the whole thing, chair. Sorry guys, one moment. I should really put this on airplane mode because I've got so many notes. Oh, is it from here? Sorry guys, just give me a sec, please. Okay, all right. Okay, I'm back. I found it. Okay. So what they're doing isn't preaching. It's narcissistic reactive ABUSE. They provoke, abuse, and dehumanize until people react. Then film the reaction to claim victimhood. It's a manipulation cycle straight out of the narcissistic playbook. ABUSE hidden inside religion, monetized by social media. Another common theme that I see coming up is this conflict with authority. The police are always coming out and it's like, oh, they're here again. And again, the Christians online are like, oh my gosh, they're so brave. They get so much persecution. They're not seeing that they're just rebels. Like they were like that before, menaces to society. Do you know what I'm saying? That's what they were before. So they had that history with the popo, my love. You know, it's like another day at the office. Oh, hey, they've been in conflict their whole life. That's what they're addicted to, conflict and the thrill seeking, because this isn't saving anyone. And then because they're so indoctrinated and have so much HATE within the heart, they see this and they feel like, yeah, because we're getting persecuted and because there's no LOVE. It's very low vibrational. Yes, Io. But you know, my live is just really sensitive because they thing it up. I have to have eight accounts just to speak my truth, chair. That's why I have to spell words and all that. All right. So why do the popo come? Yeah. So we're going to be looking at the public order offences in context to the United Kingdom. So that's I think it's the Public Order Offences Act. Yeah. Under the Public Order Act. Public offences under the Public Order Act. So when shouting crosses into threats or ABUSE behaviour that causes harassment, alarm or distress, it's actually arrestable under the Public Order Act. So the popo often step in, not just for the public's protection, but also because their behaviour risks spiralling into violence. So essentially, the popo are coming out to de-escalate the situation. That's how much of a menace they're being. And a public nuisance and disturbance. Yeah. So escalation loop. They provoke crowds deliberately, but once adrenaline and anger take over, they lose control of their own behavior. And that's why you see like these characters have so much ego that they don't, there's no humility. There's so much ego and pride and hyper masculinity that when people are saying things back, they can't even just hold their mouth. Like, did you see the guy at the carnival that was like, somebody take her to Primark and buy her some clothes to cover up? He was calling them 304s. It's just like, do you know what I mean? They can't even control their own behavior because of the adrenaline of what they are doing. And you know what I mean? It's that. This makes arrests more likely because they see them as a catalyst for the disturbance. Self-incrimination. Many of these preachers film themselves. The very clips they use as rage bait often serve as evidence of disorderly conduct, ABUSE language, or even HATE crime. But they don't care because they're so addicted to the adrenaline, to the views, to the rage bait. Like I was saying, if tomorrow it became illegal to do this, they would be breaking the law and covering it with we're persecuted, we're not going to stop doing this. And do you understand? That's religious psychosis, share. Obey the law of the land. So even though you feel like you're getting persecuted and this, that, and the third, you need to obey the law of the land, my love. Okay. Why are they a risk to themselves? Because they're addicts and addicted to the adrenaline. Thanks for the follow, my love. Guys, can you follow me on my main account, Leah Lauder 7? Do you know what? I think I'm going to start delivering the university. I'm going to deliver from my main account. But I'm going to start delivering some of these from my main account because, you know, it's all theory. So please follow Leah Lauder 7. This is one of my backup accounts. Okay. So they're addicted to the adrenaline. Many come from high conflict backgrounds and comorbid traumatic backgrounds share. So being GMs on the streets, prison, violence, you know, shotters, whatever. Thank you, Lucia. That's the my main TikTok. Their nervous systems have been trained to need chaos. So guys, if you're interested in a deeper dive of this, then go on my YouTube, Leah Lauder 7. And I've got, I've uploaded a part on the subconscious mind. And I really do break down how the cult deregulate your neurosystem, rewire the brain to basically be under full control. Under the full control of the cult leader, okay? So the streets, that's a certain type of indoctrination as well. So when they come from those kind of backgrounds, you've got that thing where you don't fear nothing. That's why I'm like this. I don't fear no one. Are you all right? So, and it's like you think you're bad. Like Ollie could have come from Cambridge, but there could be a little hood in there. So he thinks he's like, he was that bad man, you know, like from his ends and whatever. So he thinks he's bad. Like they all got that thing where they think they're, you know, that's how their neurosystems have been trained to need the chaos. They thrive off that. A lot of them have come from unstable backgrounds, childhood trauma, disorganized, unsecure attachments with their parents. Some of them haven't grown up with parents. Their parents could have emotionally neglected. I mean, the list goes on. And they just don't have this knowledge. That's why for lack of knowledge, our people perish, unfortunately. They are very forceful and put too much pressure on people in these streets. Yes, I agree. Thanks for the follow. I absolutely agree. Neurobiologically, oh my God, there's push on it. Neurobiologically, confrontation gives a dopamine and adrenaline rush. Over time, they chase bigger risks to get the same hit. And guys, you've got to remember with this, there's going to be a huge element of mystical manipulation because they're addicted to the views, all of that, the grandiose ideologies that they have of self, whatever. So every time it's going to need to be like up in what they did the last time, or they're going to need that shock factor to get the views, to keep people locked in. And it's a bit of a cycle because then people kind of, like you could argue that people are addicted to social media and being online and watching these rage-bait Christian clips and etc. This stuff goes really, really deep because there's a market for it because they get a lot of views and they get a lot of likes. So there's some sort of underlying, people have issues or up in the dosage. Yeah, that's deep, Jay. All right. So over time, they chase... Oh, I've already said that. But let's say it again. Why not? A good preacher always says the same thing 3 times. Over time, they chase bigger risks to get the same hit. This pushes them towards riskier locations, louder provocation, and bigger confrontations, increasing their chances of arrest or assault. And then they become like just desensitized to it. But they have become desensitized to it from their past. Do you see what I mean? And they see it like, oh, when I was doing this on the roads and now I'm doing it for Christ. It's very, do you see where the RADICAL, indoctrination and thinking comes into play, okay? Trauma and unresolved mental health issues. Some have histories of trauma, incarceration, or substance abuse. Without treatment, they may displace unresolved rage and shame onto sinners in the street. So projection, because there's no real healing. It's just hands laid on, indoctrination. They're in these, you know, high control settings or whatever. Or they've had a lot of I can't remember what the psychological term for it is, but each one of these guys has some sort of claim to fame. Like, oh, I was sitting in my cell and God spoke to me, or you know what I mean? They got some sort of whatever. And it's all covered in hyper religiosity. It's like their claim to fame. And I also wanted to say as well that, you know, it is linked to that adrenaline rush, but through the unresolved rage, they're taking it out on people in the public, and that's what the projection is, because they haven't dealt with their shadow self and their trauma, etc. And you can't speak to these people. Do you know what I mean? They just dictate to everybody. They think that they're right and you're wrong. Like, that's the black and white dogmatic thinking, okay? That causes conflict. The religious zeal gives them a delusional framework. They convince themselves that their rage is holy anger, instead of untreated PTSD, personality disorder traits, or psychosis. Identity fusion. Their sense of self is fused with the role of street prophet, evangelist, whatever. Any challenge feels like a personal attack, because remember, their whole identity is in this, so they take it personally. But then they make what they do synonymous with God. So when Ollie got banned from Brighton for 24 hours, then he came back and he said that the devil, we're showing the devil who's boss. No, you're showing them who's boss. The people of Brighton, the imaginary enemies that you've created in your mind through grandiose ideologies of self, hallucinations, and religious psychosis. All right, my love? Okay. So this rigidity makes them volatile, because backing down equals an ego unalivement. It's also a narcissistic injury as well. So they escalate instead. So that's why when you see like the incident that happened in Croydon and the popo came and was like, turn it off, he was getting more aroused, like it was getting louder, and and the guy was telling him to do this. I've got the recording of it. So it's rage bait. It's content for them. They know that they're going to get loads of views. They thrive off this. They're addicted to it. There was even at a point Jesse completely lost it, and he was like, they were like, if you don't stop, we're going to arrest you. He was like, arrest me then. It was like, you know, them young people like I work with, like back in the day, like, oh, I don't give it, just date me or cuff me up in it. Like, I was just thinking, rascal, this is unruly jail. There's no way you're going to tell me that you're under the unction, influence, restraint of God. There's absolutely no way. Through that behavior, there's absolutely no way, jail. There's absolutely no way. These man them don't fear nothing and no one. They don't fear nothing and no one. Okay. So why they're a risk to others? Crowd psychology. Aggressive preaching stirs large emotional crowds. Once tensions flare, altercations can break out, not just between preacher and heckler, but between bystanders too. We saw that in Croydon, where there was a guy in a wheelchair that was with Jesse and Ollie, and he actually got arrested. And, you know, he was on, and it was really traumatic to see. And again, you know, hyper local areas like Croydon that have a plethora of issues, they're seeing a lot of, they're experiencing trauma in daily life, and then they're coming in and meant to be preaching the gospel, but they are actually inflicting, is it secondhand trauma onto the community. So now we've got a community that's directly affected, and this is all because they want to go out and get their supply because they're addicted to that, and then go and post it up and get views and get content. Anyway, if I'm right, may the Lord's judgment and hand of justice weigh in on this situation, yeah. Because it's not for me to do it, it's just for me to put out the information and just say what I see. As for the judgment and the consequences and the repercussions of things, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. All right. Reactive abuse. The reactive abuse cycle. By provoking and then filming people's reaction, they engineer situations where ordinary citizens can be criminalized, arrested, or shamed online. Like what happened to that old lady. Like, is there ever a point when Ollie thinks, oh, do you know what? Because of the integrity, you know, and, you know, like maybe let me safeguard these people because they're really emotional and upset. Like, no empathy. It's just, yeah, I'm just going to edit it and just put it up. Like, no empathy, cold as ice, just putting it up, you know. You're not even thinking that's someone's grandmother that you've got so angry. Just like nothing. Nothing. Lights are on, no one's home. Thanks for the gifts, babe. That's someone's grandmother, you know. Do you know what? I don't even know how to pronounce this chair. I'm just gonna say, oh, I think they're trying to say contagonize. So contagiate chair. What I think it's trying to say here is when they contagonize people to the point of rage. So their constant abuse normalizes aggression in public spaces, which emboldens copycats and destables community. So this is just supporting what I'm saying. So people like Jesse, you know, are looking up to Ollie and copying that behavior, and it's breeding a generation of these styles of abuse street preachers. And then I'm going to get onto the gal them that are just doing up 304 and outside in these streets. Thanks for the follow. Because the gal them do it differently to how the man them do it. Like the gal them have to use their femininity because it's dangerous. Some of them just don't cur though. The other ones are just unstable or they've got nothing to lose. But the pretty ones that do it, they always use their looks. They use that, you know, like that glamorous god girl or whatever. They're all the same. And the thing about these gal them is like I've been celibate for like, I don't even know how long it is now. Has it been 2 years? And it's like, yeah, I get my days and whatever. But it's not like these gal them are fasting and praying for man and... Oh, do you know what, guys? I can't even get into it because it's just such a MESS. All right. The mental health dynamics in play. Possible narcissistic traits. Grandiosity. I speak for God in the name of God. Lack of empathy. Need for constant attention and framing themselves as martyrs when confronted. Or I'm just preaching the gospel or whatever. Possible antisocial traits. Thrill seeking. Disregard for rules. Disregard for humankind. Disregard for another human being. Disregard for people's decency, disregard for their elders, disregard for their fellow brother and sister. Impulsivity, so just doing without even thinking because it's all about the impulse. And a lot of these guys who come from the streets or whatever, they're very impulsive. A lot of them have undiagnosed ADHD, autism. A lot of the guys from the roads have there's a lot of neurodivergence that is undiagnosed. I've worked in secure estates. I know my stuff. So I can see, that's why I can connect the dots. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I use ChatGPT, but you need to know the questions to ask to be able to connect all the dots, chair. I can clearly see what's going on here. It's like to any GANG specialist, they can see as clear as day, unless they're indoctrinated and inside of the setting, then they won't be able to see with clear eyes because they've got that indoctrination. So again, the prefrontal cortex, the amygdala, anyone who claims that they're within these type of settings and they're doing any type of helping profession, they'll never be, it'll all be fake. Because remember, these kind of settings like social work, whatever, they're very cultish. They're statutory settings. They're like high control groups, like these cults share. So guys, listen, let's not go there today. What's wrong with Leah? She's coming for everybody. All right. Possible trauma and PTSD. Many have lived in high stress, violent contexts. Loud, aggressive preaching is often a maladaptive way of managing their inner chaos, because remember, they thrive off chaos, and a lot of them have come from those sort of like traumatic backgrounds. So it's like mimicking that. It's like they feel safe in that moment, but also remember, the grandiose ideology is also feeding the delusions. This is crazy, chair. And that's what I'm saying, like, that's what I'm saying, guys. Like, some people are just gonna, unfortunately, just be doing this for the rest of their life and staying in it. Unfortunately, I do think it's too late for some people. I'm not gonna lie to you, but really what I'm about is the next generation, the ones before they get infiltrated. Yeah, my hope is for the next generation, because it's just too deep. My hope is that I'll just put the information out there, and if it resonates with people and they're able to come out, they come out. But it's not my core focus, because it's just so complex. Like it has to be revealed to you in a certain way. That's all I'm gonna say. And that first revelation is, like you coming out of the setting, because then what happens is, it's like, it kind of just, I don't know why I want to say biochemistry, but there's something that happens that starts to happen to, you know, whatever's going on inside of you. And then you start to be opened up to like this new realization, because you haven't had any new stuff going on. So then, you know, your neurosystem's been all it's dysregulated and it's trying to figure out what's going, you know what I mean? That's where the breakdown comes into it, because we can't process it like normal people, because they've programmed us to think a certain way. Do you see? So chair. You never say never though. All right. Addictive behavior. They're not addicted to substance or alcohol. It's to the conflict and attention. The rage bait becomes their DRUG of choice. So these men aren't stable called prophets. They're trapped in addiction. They're trapped in an addiction cycle. They provoke, escalate, and then crash into the legal system, dragging others with them. This isn't preaching. It's untreated trauma, adrenaline addiction, and narcissistic ABUSE spilling into the streets. They are a risk to the public, and they are also a risk to themselves. I want to also just add that again, because I've written this as a note, so I want to highlight it. When these like guys are getting into conflict, getting arrested, getting into whatever, this is very normalized to them. They have become desensitized, been in and out of pen. It's become normalized behavior. It's not heroic, because that's how it's coming across to the naive people them that are going every Sunday, got their head in the clouds. But to those of us that have really been about that life, we can see that they're just BULLYs. Ooh, chair. Do you know what? There's so much. Do you know what? I'm going to leave this bit and just get on to the next bit now.